Charizard, known in Japan as Lizardon, is a Poké Copyrightmon species in Nintendo and Game Freak's Poké Copyrightmon franchise. Created by Ken Sugimori, Charizard first appeared in the video games Pocket Monsters Red and Green and subsequent sequels. They have later appeared in various merchandise, spin-off titles and animated and printed adaptations of the franchise. Shinichiro Miki, the actor who voices James in the original Japanese version of the Poké Copyrightmon anime, voices Charizard in both the Japanese and English language versions of the anime. An orange, dragon-like Poké Copyrightmon, Charizard is the evolved form of Charmeleon, which is the evolved form of Charmander. It has two other forms, which are its Mega Evolution, Mega Charizard X and Mega Charizard Y. Charizard is featured in the Poké Copyrightmon anime series, with the most recurring being from the main character, Ash Ketchum. It is featured in printed adaptations such as Poké Copyrightmon Adventures, in the possession of Blue, one of the main characters. Charizard appears in Poké Copyrightmon Origins with main character Red as its trainer. Charizard has received positive reception from the media, with GamesRadar describing it as hands down one of the coolest Poké Copyrightmon out there. Charizard is the version mascot of Poké Copyrightmon Red and FireRed versions, and makes an appearance on the boxarts of Poké Copyrightmon Stadium, Poké Copyrightmon Ranger, Poké Copyrightmon Mystery Dungeon, Red Rescue Team, and Poké Copyrightmon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Sky. Concept and characteristics: Charizard was one of several different character choices conceived by Game Freak's character development team and finalized by Ken Sugimori for the first generation of Pocket Monsters games Red and Green, which were localized outside of Japan as Poké Copyrightmon Red and Blue. Originally called Lizardon in Japanese, Nintendo decided to give the various Poké Copyrightmon species clever and descriptive names related to their appearance or features when translating the game for Western audiences as a means to make the characters more relatable to American children. As a result, they were renamed Charizard, a combination of the words charcoal, or char, and lizard. During an interview, Poké Copyrightmon Company President Tsunekazu Ishihara stated Charizard was expected to be popular with North American audiences because of their preference for strong, powerful characters. Whereas its pre-evolutions Charmander and Charmeleon are ground-bound lizard-like creatures, Charizard resembles a large traditional European dragon. Despite the resemblance, Charizard is explicitly a fire-flying type, not a dragon type, except in its Mega Charizard X form. However, it can learn dragon-type attacks. Charizard have two wings that are blue, while the back is orange, as with the most of its body. Its belly and soles are cream-colored, while their eyes are light blue in color. The video games describe Charizard as having wings that can carry them close to an altitude of 4,600 feet, flying proudly around the sky and constantly seeking for powerful opponents to quarrel with. They can breathe intense flames that can melt any material, but will never torch a weaker foe. If Charizard become angry, the flame at the tip of their tail can flare up in a whitish-blue color. Because of their reckless behavior, Charizard are known to unintentionally cause wildfires. When Charizard is mega-evolved, it can take on one of two forms. In its X form, it gains the dragon type, and its color scheme changes from orange and green to black and blue. In its Y form, its appearance gets sharper with pointed horns and wings, and it is able to fly much higher. Appearances in video games. Charizard made its video game debut in 1996 with the Japanese release of Poké Copyrightmon Red and Blue. It is available only through Poké Copyrightmon Evolution from the starter Poké Copyrightmon, Charmander. In Poké Copyrightmon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, and their remakes, Poké Copyrightmon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Charizard is used by Red, who acts as the game's final boss. Charizard is one of several Poké Copyrightmon and Poké Copyrightmon X and Y that will able to use the new Mega Evolution mechanic, becoming either Mega Charizard X or Mega Charizard Y. It was given a Mega Evolution about 1.5 years into the development of Poké Copyrightmon X and Y. Charmander was added to the game in a significant role in order to allow players to experience Charizard's Mega Evolution. Charizard has made appearances in many other Poké Copyright Mon games. It appears in Poké Copyright Mon Mystery Dungeon, Blue Rescue Team and Red Rescue Team on a team with an Alakazam and Tyranitar, who play a significant role in the story. In Poké Copyright Mon Ranger, Charizard is a boss Poké Copyright Mon who becomes attached to the player's character and assists him or her throughout the game. Charizard returns in Poké Copyright Mon Ranger, Guardian Signs as another boss character. It is also one of the photographable Poké Copyright Mon and Poké Copyright Mon Snap, as well as a non-playable character in Poké Copyright Parkway, Pikachu's Adventure and its sequel, Poké Copyright Park 2, Wonders Beyond. Charizard has appeared many times throughout the Super Smash Bros. Series. Charizard first appears as a non-playable character in Super Smash Bros. And Super Smash Bros. Melee, as one of the Poké Copyright Mon which can appear if a player throws a Poké Copyright ball. In Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Charizard is now playable, under the command of the Poké Copyright Mon trainer. The trainer has a Squirtle and an Ivysaur, all three of which can be switched between. Unlike the other fighters, these Poké Copyright Mon become fatigued and consequently weaker, and must be switched out long enough to recover. Charizard's moves include Rock Smash, Flamethrower, and Fly. Charizard is playable as a standalone character in the fourth Super Smash Bros. Game, where his new Final Smash is transforming into Mega Charizard X. Charizard also appears as a playable fighter in Poké Copyright N Tournament. In anime. In the anime, the most notable Charizard is one Ash Ketchum has had since he was a Charmander abandoned by his former owner. Ash's Charmander evolved into Charmeleon during a battle against an army of Exeggutor, and his personality changed completely, becoming a disobedient Poké Copyright Mon and fighting when and how he pleased. Charmeleon evolved when Ash summoned him for protection from wild prehistoric Poké Copyright Mon. When an Aerodactyl attacked him and carried Ash off, Charmeleon evolved to fight the Aerodactyl and rescue Ash. Charizard still didn't obey Ash, preferring to sleep, and only battled Poké Copyright Mon that would pose a challenge, but Charizard helped Ash reach his goals, particularly against gym leader Blaine. Sadly, Charizard's disobedience to Ash then led to costing him the Kanto League. Charizard became loyal during the Orange Islands arc after Ash battled a trainer with a Poliwrath and Charizard was frozen solid. Because of Ash's continuous self-sacrificing efforts to save Charizard from certain death, he began to obey Ash and defeated the Poliwrath in a rematch. He remained on Ash's team and contributed to his wins in the Orange League and parts of Johto. He eventually stayed behind in the Charizard Valley, a reserve where wild Charizard battle and train to become stronger. This was likely due to meeting Charla, a female Charizard for whom he developed a fondness. Charizard, like many of Ash's other Poké Copyright Mon, returns on a temporary basis to battle at Ash's side, typically when Ash faces a particularly powerful Poké Copyright Mon. Charizard has saved Ash's life on more than one occasion, as seen in the film Spell of the Unknown, where he battled against Entei after arriving in the nick of time to prevent Ash and Pikachu from falling to their deaths, having flown over from the Charizard Valley after originally seeing a live broadcast from Ash running after Entei who had kidnapped Ash's mother, Delia. Charizard returned for Ash's first Battle Frontier battle, where he took on Nolan's Articuno at the Battle Factory and won thanks to an unorthodox strategy. During the Best Wishes series, Charizard officially rejoined Ash's team while Ash was exploring the Unother region. Upon meeting Ash again, he gave his trainer a flamethrower to the face much to everyone's surprise. Charizard also developed a fierce rivalry with Iris's Dragonite, so much so that both Ash and Iris agreed to have a battle. During the battle, which originally began on the ground but later ascended skywards when both Poké Copyright Mon took to the skies, it was shown that Charizard had learned Wing Attack, Slash, and Dragon Tail, but despite the two Poké Copyright Mon having something of a very fierce rivalry with one another, N immediately called the battle off after realizing that Dragonite had injured its right arm. Charizard stayed with all of Ash's Poké Copyright Mon sans Pikachu at Professor Oak's laboratory when Ash leaves Kanto once more for the faraway Kalos region. Charizard has its own DVD that contains 4 episodes featuring it: Attack of the Prehistoric Poké Copyright Mon, Charizard Chills, Charizard's Burning Ambition, and this DVD is part of the 10th anniversary box set. In the box set's 10 most wanted Poké Copyright Mon countdown, Charizard is listed as the 3rd most wanted, beaten only by Pikachu and Jigglypuff. In the television special Poké Copyright Mon Origins, Charizard is Red's partner, having evolved from Chameleon at the beginning of the 3rd segment. He helps Red win the Poké Copyright Mon League and defeat his rival, Blue. During the final battle against the legendary MEWTWO in the last segment, his bond with Red resonates with their Keystone and Mega Stone given to them by Mr. Fuji of Lavender Town, allowing him to Mega Evolve into Mega Charizard X and defeat MEWTWO, allowing Red to have captured all 150 Poké Copyright Mon in the Kanto region. In printed adaptations in Poké Copyright Mon, Pikachu shocks back, which loosely parallels the storyline of the anime. Ash catches a Charmander, and it ultimately becomes a Charizard and battles in the Poké Copyright Mon League tournament. Despite his catch, he has trouble controlling it. Ash brings Charizard to the Orange Islands and trains it diligently since the near disaster. He then uses it to battle Dragonite in the final showdown with the Orange Crew Supreme Gym leader Drake. In the Poké Copyright Mon Adventures manga, Blue receives a Charmander from his grandfather Professor Oak. It evolves into a Chameleon, and when Blue is possessed by a Ghastly in the Lavender Tower, so is Chameleon. Blue's Chameleon is eventually released from its possession only to be faced down by an Arbok, owned by Koga. Chameleon tricked Koga by using a zombie Psyduck to deflect Arbok's acid attack before literally slicing the Arbok in half with his tail. Blue later appears with an evolved Charizard and gains access to Saffron City by helping to disable a barrier created by a Mr. Mime. Later, Red and Blue face off against Koga's Articuno and are frozen by its ice beam, but they ultimately defeat the Team Rocket executive with Charizard's flamethrower. It then teams up with Red's newly evolved Venusiao, Sour, and Green's Blastoise, Blasty, to defeat Sabrina's monster Poké Copyright Mon. They end Team Rocket's control of Saffron City, splitting apart the 3 birds in the process. Blue's Charizard reappeared during the final match of the 9th Poké Copyright Mon League, against his longtime rival Red. Despite the type advantage, Charizard battles against Sour and is nearly knocked out. As the battle progresses, the 2 trainers send out their first Poké Copyright Mon to battle again, when Sour binds Charizard from attacking. Suddenly, thunderclouds form from the attacks of Poli and Pika, and Sour submerges a vine into the cloud, shocking Charizard and knocking it out. When the Fire and Leaf Green volume of the manga began, the original protagonists Red, Blue, and Green returned to fight the newly formed Team Rocket and the Deoxys under their power. The 3 trainers become trapped inside the Trainer Tower in the Seaver Islands, battling the main computer of the building, and the Deoxys divides. After struggling to coordinate Blasty, Sour, and Charizard, the 3 trainers managed to focus the angle of the 3 powerful attacks Blast Burn, Hydro Cannon, and Frenzy Plant to free MEWTWO, who in turn destroys the Trainer Tower. Charizard appeared as the main Poké Copyright Mon in the short novel, Charizard Go. Adapted by Tracy West, the novelization retells Ash's journey with his Charmander, and it reaches its climax as Ash and Charizard battle in the Poké Copyright Mon League at the Indigo Plateau against his good friend Richie. The story covers Ash and his companions finding the abandoned Charmander, the battles in which Chameleon did not listen to Ash, and Charizard's battle against Blaine's Magmar. Charizard Go is the 6th novel in the Poké Copyright Mon chapter book series. Another chapter novel, All Fired Up, Poké Copyright Mon The Johto Journeys, adapted by Jennifer Johnson, covers the portion of Ash's journey near Violet City in the Jurassic Valley. In the novel, Ash wonders if Charizard should leave his team forever. It covers the capture of Ash's Cyndaquil, his new Fire Poké Copyright Mon. Reception and legacy. Charizard has been featured in lines of soft toys and action figures in the Poké Copyright Mon franchise, made by Hasbro and Tomy. In 2004, the Charizard medium plush was part of a major recall of 13 plush toys due to a manufacturing fault where tips of needles were being found with the stuffing. This caused Tomy to replace the toys with compensation or replacements. Charizard appears often in the Poké Copyright Mon trading card game, most notably in the series' initial release. Cards featuring the character have been stated to be the most desired of the series, quickly rising to high prices amongst collectors and retailers. These cards overpowered and knocked out opponents in one hit. In 2005, search engine Yahoo! Reported Charizard as one of the top Poké Copyright Mon-related web searches. Described by the media as a lean, ferocious, fire-breathing dragon. Sleek, powerful, and utterly destructive, Charizard has been noted as one of the franchise's most popular characters. Retailers have attributed the high sales of merchandise related to the character to the popularity of the character's dragon-like design with children. Interviewed children have stated similar. They attributed its appeal to its cool-looking appearance and associating the character with the concepts of stubbornness and power. The book Rebuilding Attachments with Traumatized Children stated psychiatrists utilized the character as an empowered character traumatized children who were fans of the Poké Copyright Mon series could relate to. The book Pikachu's Global Adventure, The Rise and Fall of Poké Copyright Mon cited Charizard as popular with older male children who tend to be drawn to tough or scary characters, and compared the character's evolution from Charmander into Charizard with the loss of cuteness as one leaves childhood. IGN editor Pokémon Authentic called Charizard certainly the most popular and perhaps the most well-balanced of any of the current starting Pokémon. GamesRadar's Brett Elston described Charizard as hands down one of the coolest Poké Copyright Mon out there, heavily praising its character design and calling it one of the coolest designs of the entire series. GamesRadar editor Raymond Padilla stated Charizard was an awesome Pokémon back in the day and still an excellent choice more than a decade after it was introduced. UGO.com described Charizard as a winged, dragon-like creature, which is able to breathe fire and smash opponents into red-tinged goo, but states that in Brawl it is as slow as Bowser, and lacks the coolness factor of Mario's arch-nemesis. Authors Tracy West and Catherine Knoll called Charizard the best fire-type Poké Copyright Mon and the third best Poké Copyright Mon overall. They wrote that there was nothing else that could better fit that spot and that it has won our hearts and had us cheering for more. One UP editor Kat Bailey expressed concern about which Poké Copyright Mon could follow the player in Poké Copyright Mon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, stating allowing popular favorites like Charizard would go over quite well. The Daily Cardinal editor Kyle Sparks called Charizard the most dominant Poké Copyright Mon in the whole universe, a force of sheer strength. In a poll conducted by IGN, it was voted as the best Poké Copyright Mon, where the staff commented about remembering being torn between choosing Blastoise and Charizard at the start of the game. In a poll by official Nintendo magazine, Charizard was voted as the best fire-type Poké Copyright Mon. They stated not only is Charizard your favorite fire Poké Copyright Mon but it is probably one of the most popular Mon of all time. Kotaku editor Patricia Hernandez criticized Charizard's Y Mega Evolution for not differing enough from Charizard's original design, while praising Mega Charizard X for changing color, and turning Charizard into a dragon type. References. External links. Charizard on Bulbapedia, Charizard at the Internet Movie Database.